Hi, I'm Lillie Moore. I'm a local librarian for teens and young adults. Now, your teacher contacted me recently to tell me that you guys are all going on your 8th grade science camp trip, which is really exciting. I loved science camp when I was in 8th grade. So I went through our selection of books at the library to see what's got kind of a forest vibe for some books that you could read maybe before your trip, on the bus ride there, maybe even on some of those quiet nights as you're on your trip. So I wanted to make it a little more fun. So with each of these books, I'm going to include a movie or TV recommendation to go with it. So maybe you've heard of the movie before, enjoyed it, so you know that you might enjoy that book as well, or vice versa. Starting us off is Scary Stories for Young Foxes by Chris McKay Heidecker. Now, don't let the title throw you off. You might be like, oh, it's a kid's book. But this actually ended up being one of the creepiest books I have in our collection today. It's a bunch of short stories told by this mysterious old fox narrator and woven together into one complete narrative. We meet a lot of foxes and other animals in this book, but our two main characters are Uli and Mia. Now, Uli, he is a fox kit with a broken or undeformed front paw. He's the runt of his litter. All of his big sisters make fun of him all the time. And he's actually chased off into the woods by his murderous father, who's just like, nope, you are a weak fox. You don't deserve to live. Fortunately, Uli makes it away, finds himself deep in the woods, where he meets Mia. Now, Mia, she's kind of the opposite of Uli. She's headstrong, she's smart, she's like, nope, I'm gonna fight back. But Mia, all of her siblings have recently died of this mysterious illness that causes them to foam at the mouth. Now, she escaped from that, but now she's out in the woods by herself. Now, these two really come together and, they're not just trying to find their way back home, they're trying to make a better home for themselves. One thing I really love about this book is that the author doesn't give you all of the details. He lets you figure things out on your own. Right? He gives you credit. You're smart. You're going to figure out what's going on. So, for example, that mysterious illness that overtakes Mia's family, he doesn't tell you what it is, but he gives you all the symptoms. Because, frankly, Mia doesn't know what it is. She doesn't know what's going wrong. She calls it the rot. It's like, oh, all of my siblings are being taken over by the rot. And it's up to us to figure out, oh, she means rabies. Now, the descriptions in this are absolutely gorgeous. Chris McKay really just goes hard on these descriptions of the forest, and it reminds us that sometimes the most horrifying force of all is nature. My recommendation for this book, if you enjoy it, is Over the Garden Wall. It's a limited Cartoon Network series, so it's all completed, one solid story. It's about two half-brothers who are lost in the woods, and they come across a lot of weird hardships as well. So if you enjoy that show, you'll probably enjoy this book as well. Alrighty, up next, I have Pan's Labyrinth by Cornelia Funke and Guillermo del Toro. So welcome to The Labyrinth of the Faun. You might have heard of this movie before. It came out in 2006, directed by Guillermo del Toro. Pan's Labyrinth, even if you've already seen the movie, which you can guess is going to be my recommendation at the end, even if you've already seen the movie, you cannot skip this book as well. Because not only does it tell the story from the film, but it adds onto it, right? There's these extra short stories, extra little character dialogues. We get to see more of the story itself. Not only that, but there are some absolutely fabulous illustrations in this as well. Now, usually when I see adaptations of films into books, I kind of roll my eyes like, oh, it's going to be kind of boring. But this is really not the case. Because Del Toro originally wrote the film and directed the film, he also wrote this book, so you see a lot of himself in it. It's very strongly written. The story features Ophelia, who is a 12-year-old girl living with her mother. It is during World War II, so after the Spanish Civil War, where the country of Spain is still pretty at odds with each other. And so she has recently moved in with Capitan Vidal, who is her new stepfather, and he is a ruthless man. Now, this story, that's just the backdrop of this beautiful fairy tale, because that's what Pan's Labyrinth is at its core. It's a fairy tale about Ophelia, who finds out from a mysterious faun that she is actually not a human girl at all. She is a princess from a long time ago, and to rejoin her real family, she has to accomplish 3 tasks. And the faun warns her, these aren't going to be simple tasks. And I have to warn you that they're not for the faint of heart. It's a little bit of a violent story, a little graphic, but not too gross. Not the scariest I'm going to share with you today. It is an absolute beauty to behold. Fantastic illustrations and beautifully descriptive passages. Definitely take your time reading this one and just really take it all in, and be prepared for a little bit of bloodshed. Like I said earlier, if you do enjoy this book, check out the film. You will not regret it. Next, I have Battle Royale. And I can already see a couple of you like, oh, Battle Royale. I know what that is, right? You're thinking, oh, I play PUBG. I know what, I play Fortnite. I know Battle Royale. So sometimes this is dubbed the original Hunger Games. And Battle Royale is just that sort of everyone versus everyone, till the death, one winner kind of fight. So in Battle Royale, which is written by Koushun Takami, so it was originally in Japanese, it has been translated. It is a thick book, just to give you a warning. It's about 600 pages, and they are dense sometimes. This is not a light read. This is one that you have to really focus on. In Battle Royale, it takes place in not too distant future Japan, where the government, trying to keep all of their teenagers in line, will occasionally just send a class of 15-year-olds off to an island, outfit them with these explosive bomb collars, and just say, okay, fight, one winner, which is creepy, right? So the kids are ordered to kill each other until just one remains, and with a bunch of rules being provided at the beginning, and just this very, okay, you have this amount of time. This is what you have in your backpacks. You have a collar, you have a bomb. Do this and you won't die. Do this and you might die. What's really interesting is the way the different people react to being told this. Some of the kids are just like, they don't believe it, right? I know I wouldn't. There are some kids who are just like, guess I die, and they just give up right away. And then there are some who act like they are excited, like they've been waiting their whole life for this opportunity. They're given food, water, some weapons. It's all kind of randomized, just like in any Battle Royale game. Now, I will say 42 characters to keep track of can be a little challenging. If you get a copy of the book that I have, which we have a few in our library like this, it comes with a map at the front, which is super helpful. It also comes with a list of all 42 students. Some of them have similar names, so this can be kind of helpful for keeping track of who's alive and who is no longer with us. One other thing that I love is at the end of every chapter, it even tells you exactly how many students remain. So 8 students remain. However many have died that chapter, it lets you know. So just a heads up, this is a dark book, like I said earlier. It deals with murder, suicide, sexual abuse. I do recommend it, of course, that's why it's here, but definitely make sure you know what you're getting into. There is a film adaptation, and it's pretty good. You might enjoy it, but I'm actually going to recommend a different series if you like Battle Royale. It's called The Wilds. It's on Amazon. It's a group of teenage girls who end up in a plane wreck, and now they're on this deserted island, and they think, well, we just survived a plane crash, but in reality, they're part of a government experiment, and they don't even know it yet. So, if you liked The Wilds, maybe you've already seen it, you'll probably enjoy Battle Royale as well. Next up, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. This is one of Stephen King's books, one of the few that he wrote for a younger audience. Now, just to start off, you might be wondering who the heck is Tom Gordon. He was a pitcher for the Red Sox about 15, 20 years ago. This book is from 1999, so it's a little bit of a throwback. Now, if you're looking to break into Stephen King's work, maybe you're like, oh yeah, he's like that horror guy. This is a wonderful starting place to really get into his head. So it stars Trisha. She's a 9-year-old girl. I will say that she's not really written like a 9-year-old in my opinion. She kind of sounds a little bit more mature, so don't let that throw you off. She's on a family hiking trip with her mother and her brother, and she veers off the path, right? She's tired of listening to them argue. She goes off on her own for a bit. Oops, she's lost in the woods. Happens that quickly and easily. Honestly, I think I could just give you the first sentence of this book to get you in that vibe. The world had teeth and it could bite you with them anytime it wanted. Right? And that's what happens to her. One minute she's just walking with her family, the next she's gone and her life has completely changed. Now she has to keep track of what's in her backpack that she can eat, right? The only thing really keeping her grounded is her Walkman or her radio that she can listen to. So she's got it tuned to the local baseball station so she can hear the baseball games. And that's the only thing that kind of keeps her motivated to get going is, hey, how's Tom Gordon doing? Is he throwing a good game? Now, I'm not much of a baseball fan, but I still really enjoyed this book, and I think you will as well. It teases you a lot, too, with this question of, is this actually happening, or is it all in Trisha's head? Stephen King does that a lot. So it's up for you to decide. I think you're going to be impressed with her perseverance and her guts, because she goes through what's probably a nightmare for most of us. And through snippets of her inner dialogue, we also learn a lot about the struggles that she's going through with her family. And you might be able to see yourself a little bit in Trisha. Now, I will say that my recommendation for this one is Netflix's Stranger Things. You might have seen it before. It's a pretty big series. Now, Stranger Things doesn't deal with kids getting lost in the woods, but it is kids using their smarts that they have to get them out of really challenging situations with these monsters that may or may not be real. And I think you'll enjoy this one. It does remind us not to stray from the path. Next up, I've got my most horrific book of all. It's Lumberjanes. Beware the Kitten Holy. It's not that scary, actually. Now, Lumberjanes was written by a team of really talented women, including Noelle Stevenson, who kind of headlines the whole thing. You might recognize her name. She does a lot of webcomics. Now, the series actually came to a conclusion in 2020. Now is a fantastic time to get into it because HBO recently bought the rights to the series, turn it into a show. So I would say get through these books first, and maybe by the time you finish them, the show will be out. Lumberjanes follows a group of campers at a girls' camp. We've got the calm and collected Jo. She's kind of the leader. We've got April, who's really clever, always solving puzzles. Molly, who's just super sweet and cautious. Mal, who's kind of her best friend, who just sort of takes care of everybody, keeps an eye on everybody. And finally, you have Ripley, who's just all over the place, right? She's the energetic one. Now, these girls face the normal summer camp challenges, but they're also dealing with like monsters and weird cryptic puzzles to solve. And they're always solving mysteries, kind of like Scooby-Doo style. Now, I will tell you straight up, the story, the plot line of this book, it's fine, it's nice, but really it's the characters that drive this whole book that make it really interesting. So unlike the rest of these books that are kind of filled with suspense and gore and blood, Lumberjanes is just plain fun. If you enjoy this one and you want something kind of similar, I recommend Gravity Falls. It was a series on Disney, I believe, 2 seasons, also about like teenagers, young teens who are solving mysteries in the woods, finding weird cryptid monsters, solving puzzles, and it's just like, it's sweet, but it's also really smart. I feel the same way about Lumberjanes. Sweet, smart, fabulous representation, especially of the LGBTQ community. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. It's a good break from the gore fest. Speaking of gore fest, I'm going to give you my actual scariest book that I have out here. This is the creepiest one that I've got. If you're a big horror fan like I am, you're going to want to check this out. Clown in a Cornfield. It's written by Adam Cesare. This is actually his first book for young adults. He usually writes adult horror novels, kind of like Stephen King, and he does not hold back. I got about halfway through this book. I was reading it a little bit before bed. I was like, I'm just gonna read one more chapter. And then it took off from like a 0 to 60 in a single chapter, and I could not put it down. I finished the entire second half in a single night. Clown in a Cornfield introduces us to Quinn Maybrook. She is a 17-year-old girl who's just moved from her hometown of Philadelphia to this sleepy little town in Missouri called Kettle Springs. She's recovering from the death of her mother. She lives with her dad, who's a doctor. He's just moved to the town to be the new town doctor. On her first day of school, she meets a group of kids, kind of a group of troublemakers, honestly. There's like the popular girls, there's the mysterious, sexy bad boy, there's the jocks, and she's just brought into their inner circle. And she's like, well, I need friends, and you guys are the only people who have talked to me, so I guess I'll just roll with it. Also, there's a big party coming up this weekend at the nearby empty barn in the middle of a cornfield, and Quinn is invited. Just look out for the town's mascot, Friendo the Clown. That's where you get the name, Clown in a Cornfield. I did cheat a little bit. This doesn't technically take place in a forest, but a cornfield is close enough. Seriously though, this one is actually a gore fest. There are a lot of people who die really horrifically and really grossly, and it is described in great detail. So if you are easily spooked, if you're not a fan of dismemberment or violence, maybe skip this one, go for one of these guys instead. But if you're like me and you're like, bring it on, then definitely check out this book. There's so many movies I could recommend with this one in conjunction. It's got like classic slasher vibes all over it. If I had to narrow it down to one, you might enjoy the Friday the 13th series. Classic 80s slasher movie, kids at a summer camp getting slashed to death. Really fun, similar vibe. So, I mean, the cover on its own really speaks for the whole book. After Clown in a Cornfield, you won't be visiting farms anytime soon. So, hopefully one of these, or all of them, or some of them sparked your interest today. Please check them out at the library, or even if none of these sparked your interest, come to the library anyway. Let me help you find something that you might enjoy a little bit more. All right, 8th graders, have a good time on your trip, and remember not to stray too far from the path.